Welcome to the Happier with Light podcast. My name is Lart van Bergen, and in this podcast, scientists will explain how light affects your happiness, the quality of your sleep, your energy, and your health. Today we are talking about the domain of sleep and the connection with light, of course, but also about aging and about the connection between sleep and behavior. We have a guest today, again, is Virginie Gabel, also a member of our scientific advisors within our Good Light Group. The Good Light Group, as you know, is a non-profit organization who wants to stimulate the use of good light indoors and get people out of the darkness. Hey, Virginie, good morning. I hope I good pronounced your name, Virginie Gabel.
Yes, that's perfect. Good morning.
Welcome to our Good Light podcast, Virginie. To have a start, could you maybe briefly introduce yourself? Who are you and where is your connection with light? What are your greatest passion within that area, if as a short introduction?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, I'm Virginie Gabel, or Gabel in French. So I'm French, located in Strasbourg right now. I did a PhD in neuroscience and chronobiology, so mostly studying sleep and specifically how light impacts human behavior and sleep, and also how aging impacts sleep. And now I'm part of the Good Light Group since a bit more than 3 years now, as a science advisor and a board member as well, and trying to help spreading the word about how light is important for well-being and health. So that's my connection with the Good Light Group.
All right. Let us start maybe with one of the most intriguing things that I read about you is that you studied sleep in extreme conditions. Really, I want to know all about that. What is that and what is that study?
Yeah, so after my PhD and one postdoctorate job, I came back to France and worked with a lab in University of Caen in partnership with Institute of Human Adaptation in Paris. And we basically studied how humans can adapt themselves to different climate change and different environments. So one of the studies that we did is to study a group of people in a cave. So if we go back to the 60s, there was a lot of different studies, people going to caves to see how circadian rhythms or how our biological clock can, how it is without any timing or any day and light information, how do the body react? And they were only just one people in the cave. And here, what we wanted to do is to see how a group of people, so there were 14 people living for 40 days in a cave in south of France. And we analyzed a lot of different variables, but my work was to focus on sleep, temperature, and how they live there without any information. So they had headlights and one light that they could switch on and off whenever they wanted, but no information about time, about day or night. And then, yeah, we studied that. It was really interesting how the body can change completely. It's a 24-hour rhythm that was not here at all in the cave.
Mm-hmm. What were the results in a way worse for humans that were there, or what were some of the effects that were not okay?
So the main results that we see is that we don't really live on a 24-hour cycle. There is a kind of a rhythm, but mostly as a mean of one day, meaning a waking part and a sleeping part, was more around 31 hours and 24 hours. Some people, they had days of 50 hours, 60 hours. It was amazing to study this data. But what we found is whatever the duration of a day, you always have 2/3 of your time that you are awake and 1/3 when you are asleep.
Okay.
So sometimes I had a night of 15, 20 hours of sleep.
Okay, that's surprising. Were you there in that same cave, Virginie, or not? Or you were examining?
Yeah, no, I didn't stay there. I visited the cave, but I didn't stay with them. They had everything they needed inside the cave. And when they went out, they gave us all the recording and then we analyzed that. And it was interesting as well to see that they didn't really try to stay awake all together and go to bed all together. They really tried to listen to their own biological clock. And some of them didn't see each other for days because when one wake up, the other one went to bed. And they really tried to listen to their body. And no one was tired during this time. There were some small groups that synchronized a little bit together, but mostly because they had the same sleep timing and wake timing.
And
So that
was the goal then also to examine how we could improve people's sleep based on all those data? Was that one of the goals?
not really to improve sleep, but it was mostly to see if a group of people will completely synchronize together, if the social information or social life is more important than the timing. And we saw that the 14 people didn't synchronize together. So meaning that the biological clock is more important than the social synchronization.
Okay, yeah, that's indeed, that's an interesting thing
Yeah.
to discover. Maybe switching on to another topic that I read about you where I was very surprised, and that is about examining aging and sleep. Next thing we know is that you are going to start talking that people will look younger through better light, or if that is the case, we are really hitting some high scores then with the good light group, if that would be the case. So I'm very curious what you have to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So you're not completely wrong, actually, because we realized that the regeneration of skin cells mostly efficient, let's say 16 hours after waking up, which means around midnight, 1 a.m., depending on what time you wake up. And we saw that if you sleep well, your skin will look better. So you might actually look younger. And to sleep better, we also need light, because light is a time giver, the most important one. So it's the light that gives a clock to the body. And we also see that in elderly people, they might not be synchronized as much as the young does to the light-dark cycle. So we wanted to check that and to kind of understand what is going on there. So yeah, during my PhD, we analyzed different group of people, one young group and one elderly. And we saw that they didn't have the same reaction to different light source. So this means that when you're getting older, you might not be as much synchronized as the young, meaning that you will have sleep problems and don't sleep really well. You will also increase napping during the day because you're tired, because you didn't sleep well during the night. And so we were trying to find a way to help older people to sleep better.
Okay, that is interesting.
Yeah, and so the thing is, when you're getting older, you have different causes or different, how to say that, like you have a biological changes that happens. Your physiology in your eyes will change, meaning that your lens will get a bit yellowish and more dense. So less light will go through your eyes and reach your retina. You also have less cells in your retina, so the amount of light that reach the retina and give information to your brain to say it's daytime is less than in young people. And that's why you also have proven to sleep good, because the day and night signal are less important. But as well, you have a behavioral change as well, meaning that you lose your schedule. You don't have to wake up at a specific time or go to bed at a specific time. You are maybe a little bit less active. You go less outside. And as a good light group member, we know that outside light, natural light, is really important for your rhythm. And because you have less light that reach your retina when you get older, you should go even more outside than usual, because you need more light to reach the same effects than when you were younger.
Okay, so that means that in fact what you are examining is quite in accordance with also what is directed in the Good Light Guide, meaning that depending on age, we need more light to better function, and then again to perhaps stay somewhat younger due to that better light that we are getting.
Yeah, exactly. If you get older, you actually need more light to synchronize your body, so to know what time it is and to prepare a good night of sleep. A good night of sleep, you start to prepare it in the morning when you wake up. So in the morning, the most important things to do right after you're awake is to go outside or at least close to a window to have a lot of light. And when you're older, you need even more light. So meaning you need to go outside a lot. more than usual to have the same effect than before. So yeah, if you want to look young, I think you should go outside a lot.
I can imagine that these kind of things are also somewhat gradual things, because we might have the tendency to think, okay, when we are young, we can have less. When we are old, we need to have a lot more. But I can also imagine that people, for example, in a workspace, that if you are like 50 or 55, that process is also already going on. So even at that age, you already need a bit more light, I can imagine.
Yeah, sure. Depending on people, it doesn't start at a specific age. It really depends. Some people, we usually say that after 55, you really need to be careful about your light exposure, but it can start at 65 as well. It really depends. But it's even better if you start earlier, so you're sure that you get enough light. And right now in our society, we also spend most of our time inside. I think there is a study that said that we spend 90% of our time inside, which is not good, because the difference between the day, a lot of light during the day, and no light at night, that's the most important thing to sleep well. And if we stay inside, we don't have enough light during the day, and actually too much light in the evening, because we have all the electric lights. So it's really important to get as much as we can natural light during the day, and maybe not turn off all the light in the evening, but at least put the light dimmer and with a more red orange.
Yeah, what strikes me always is that I have a general impression that bigger audience are really not aware about those consequences on what they do in regards to light, and people are not aware enough that it really matters to tackle also that matter to have enough light during the day and less light during the evening. And we will get to that later in our conversation. You already mentioned just before a link to behavior, because I also saw that you were studying links, sleep, light, aging, behavior. Are there more things when it comes to regard of behavior where you see combinations?
Yeah, sure. Everything that you do during the day will influence or have an impact on your sleep. So, of course, if we take the example of elderly, you spend most of your time inside. If you do less exercising or sports or just walking around, depending on what you will eat as well, the timing of your different meal, everything will impact your sleep. So we try to see that if you have a lot of light in the morning and that gives the time to your body, you might be able to better adapt all the things that you do during the day to not disturb your sleep in the evening. And if you stay in the darkness or not enough light, you don't have enough energy to do everything you should do during the day, and then you will actually disturb your sleep even more.
Yeah, okay, I understand. I see also that today you as a researcher basically are working in your own company, where you mentioned, okay, we have now 100% focus on guiding people, on consulting companies, consulting schools in the domain of better sleep, if I understood well, and said that your work focuses there on 4 important pillars. Could you explain that some more, what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. So the thing is, when you look at numbers right now in our society, a lot of people are complaining about sleep problems, difficulties staying awake during the day or be alert. And we realize that everything is connected. There is sleep, of course, but if you don't eat well, if you don't exercise, if you're too much stressed, you won't sleep well. Even so you're doing everything you can to sleep well, it won't get better. So we say that there is 4 pillars to well-being and health, which means sleep, of course, sports, what we eat, food, and as well how you deal with the stress, your mind and so on.
So more emotional functions.
Exactly. Because if we don't play or if we don't manage to reduce the stress, you can do whatever you want. You will stay or you will wake up during the night because of stress, anxiety, and so on. So it's really important as well to work on that to sleep better. And so what I do with my company is to make people aware what happens if they don't sleep well, because usually when you ask them, everyone knows that it's not good to don't sleep a lot or to have a good night of sleep. They know that it's bad for your memory, concentration, mood, etc. but there's plenty of other things that they might not know. So it's making awareness about what really is involved in a good night of sleep, and as well tells them that everything is connected, and then explain them how to exercise at what time, depending on their own sleep and wake time, how to organize their day so that they don't disrupt their circadian rhythm and sleep better, a different exercise to reduce the stress for cardiac activity and so on, and as well what to eat at different times. So the same meal can be really good for lunch, but really bad for dinner. So just explain them how the body works, how circadian rhythm work, so that they can organize their day depending on all of that.
Okay, I understand. So if I understand well, it's more like a 360 degrees views on how to approach that problem regarding to sleep. Maybe a bit similar as, for example, the International Well-Building Institute tries to do. So try to be really holistic to have a generation of impact, in fact, on people's well-being.
Yeah, exactly. And most of the time people are talking about stress, food and sports, but not so much about sleep. It starts a little bit right now. And as well, when I go and talk about sleep, I talk, of course, about the impact of light. Because again, like a lot of people say, yeah, I exercise, I eat this kind of thing, like to sleep better. But no one knows about light. When I tell people a good night of sleep start in the morning when you wake up and expose yourself to natural light, no one knows about that.
True, I completely agree that it is a subject that people are so less aware. That's true. When you in your consultancy talk about light therapy, I can also imagine that it must be difficult to tackle organizations because, in fact, you want to give a lot of information in general to people. But in my opinion, it also needs to be a bit of a one-on-one approach because it's also quite personal at sometimes. How do you make those combinations?
Yeah, sure. So every advice that we give, we tell people it's general advice, but you have to adapt everything to your own life. We also do coaching. So if people want to know a bit more, to have more personal advice depending on their own constraints, then we can do coaching, and we will really record, with a sleep journal, their sleep and wake timing, what they eat, how much stress or anxious they are, and so on. And we will build with them a typical week with different schedule, and explain them how to organize their daily basis, depending on food, activity, all the breathing exercises as well to reduce stress, and what to do to sleep. So yeah, we can also do specific coaching that is more efficient actually for one specific person that needs more advice.
Is that also the area then where you mentioned also in your organization that you also focus for a part on light therapy? Could you explain that some more? What is it? Is it technology driven, and how it is implied?
Yeah, so basically during summertime, you don't really need light therapy because you have a lot of natural lights already. But when it comes to winter time, you can see that in the morning when you wake up, you usually don't have light. And as I said before, the most important thing to synchronize your body is to expose yourself to a lot of light when you wake up. And during winter time, a lot of people are a little bit depressed, or the mood are down. With the light therapy, they can feel better. So what we do is, again, we explain all the circadian rhythm, the biological, how it works, how our body works with the lights. I do it in collaboration with a woman that kind of sell or lends some light therapy lamp. And at the end, they can test all these lights and try to see which one is the best for them. And we explain them how to use it as well, because if you just buy a light therapy in the market, you usually don't know exactly how to use it. So we follow them, we explain them how it works. We have some questionnaires to see if they feel better after that. So it's a long process, but a lot of people feel really happy. Some people that borrow some lamps they were so happy. They didn't want to give it back. But yeah, in the end, they bought some. But they are so happy because they said that the light every morning, if you expose yourself to a light at the same time, they went to bed, they fall asleep faster and easier. And they almost didn't need an alarm clock in the morning because their body just wake up naturally because they knew what time it was.
Amazing. What always strikes me as a person is that, so certainly within the Good Light group, we all agree that light has a very specific impact on us as human beings, how we function. Even if you already say that we can look younger, even through those better lighting and a better sleep. But it is still, in my personal experience, I always find it a struggle that, first of all, people are really not aware about that. And on the other hand, I sometimes have people who really look at me and I hear them thinking, what is he talking about? Is it real what he is doing? What is your approach on that? Because I personally find that sometimes very hard to convince people. It's like you are coming from another planet, or like you're telling some kind of fairy tales. I can imagine that, for example, with your light therapy, is there any research also going on to convince people? Or in your experience, are there other ways really to convince people about the effects of good light?
So yeah, there's plenty of study actually. What I usually do is I don't go there saying, try this light or light is good for you. Don't ask questions. And that's why I try to educate them from a neuroscience point of view. People don't like when you go there and give advice. It's like, no, I won't do it. So what I prefer to do is explain how the body works. As I told you before, like explain how melatonin works. We haven't spoken about melatonin yet. Maybe we will, but melatonin is the hormone that increases in the evening to give sleep signal. So it makes you kind of sleepy and you will fall asleep. And everything I show them with graph, with different experiments, how it works, how melatonin can be impacted by different things that you do, by the light and so on. And yeah, it's kind of a biological class that I give before explaining them and give them advice. So that when I come to the part where I give them advice and talk about luminotherapy, they know where it comes from because I explained it before. And if you do that, educate them, explain where it comes from, they are more aware of the impact of light, and they are also more conciliant to use the light therapy.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. So basically, what you say is that one of the remedies, it is not a fast way. We really need to educate people in that area. It is also my experience, even so, that I really believe that even in terms of biology classes in our education system today, already should be adapted to those new insights, which they are not today. Because, I mean, we learn, or our kids learn in biology class only about cots and roans, or rods and scones, that is better said, in the eye, and are completely not educated about what is going on in terms of non-visual things that we get through our eyes. So I agree that education is probably one of the best things that we could do. That's why, for example, a podcast like this will also be helpful in that area. Question where I always tend to end with, Virginie, with my guests who come to the podcast. If you could explain for you or for yourself the things that you do, 3 easy takeaways for a better sleep, what would your top 3 be to tackle immediately?
Okay, so of course the first one is light. So it's something really easy to do when you wake up in the morning. Just open all your curtains, expose yourself to light, and in the evening try to avoid too much light. That's one of the most important things. Then try to stay active during the day. It will also enhance your fatigue and you'll sleep better. And one thing that really worked well for me is at least 2 hours, 1 hour and a half, 2 hours before bedtime. Don't do anything that will make you more stressed or anxious. Just have a relaxing time. Do everything that makes you happy. Don't expose yourself to lights. Don't eat too much because it will also disturb your sleep. So really take a buffer time before your working day and your sleeping night.
Yeah, so
That's one of the most effective things.
it's good light habits, if I understand well, that we need to tackle. Have an active life, that is also something good, and then really
Yeah,
try to balance our day more towards having a good night's sleep.
exactly.
Virginie, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today within this Good Light podcast. That was very
Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. About this Good Light podcast, if you as an audience consider our Good Light podcast being any valuable, please subscribe to our channel or write a note or a review, whatever you want. If you have more questions, please do not hesitate to take contact through our email address, goodlightpodcast@goodlightgroup.org, which is a mouthful, but we will receive those answers. Also, do not hesitate if you have any topics in the future about Good Light to learn more about, take contact with us, and then we'll try and look for a good solution for our future podcasts. Virginie, I wish you a good day and a good night's sleep for this Friday. And thank you again so much for having you here in this podcast.